Tech Cocktail Sessions, educational and inspirational talks from experienced startup founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders.
Good to see you here. Hey, everybody. So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. I had a great time. Met some great folks downstairs. Toured around. I didn't get to actually print anything or laser cut anything, but I'll do that later on when we get done.
So, tell us a little bit more about like GE Garage or the Garage and how it kind of came about and your role in that.
Oh, geez. Well, the Garages actually goes back a couple of years ago. We did an experiment at South by Southwest in 2012 where we said, we want to get connected to this maker community. How many people would say you're connected or involved in the maker community out there? Okay, you think about GE, you think about making stuff. So we make like refrigerators, which you saw downstairs. We make bigger things like jet engines.
Yeah.
And huge
I didn't see any of those downstairs.
Steam turbines. It's hard to fit a jet engine in something like this. So we make really big stuff. But you don't think about us as getting connected to the maker or the startup community. And a couple of people came up with the idea, not me, that said, let's go do something. Let's start to get involved with like this crazy thing called 3D printing. And so they come to someone like me and I'd say like, what the heck is 3D printing? Know a lot more about it now.
Right.
So we just put together and we said two things were coming together. We were trying to learn how to reinvent ourselves. You don't get to be 135 years old if somewhere along the way something in the gene bank doesn't say you gotta evolve, you gotta change, you gotta innovate. And since that's what I do full time, that's kind of what I do as our change agent. So we tried it out. We invited startups, we invited makers, we invited schools. We just had it open. In fact, this space is open. It's going to be open for 3 weeks. I think it goes to like April 12th. Feel free to come in, come back, try out the equipment. There's classes coming. There's all kinds of folks starting to come in here in terms of getting educated on how to do it. So anyway, one thing led to another. This is like the fifth one of these that we've done. So we don't do a lot of them, but I think we're getting better, and it's really making a big impact.
No, it's definitely a pretty interesting space. You've had a lot of different people come through. You've got a whole agenda of things happening the rest of the couple weeks.
We bring all kinds of folks.
So your role, and can you tell us a little bit more about your role specifically? You're focused on global innovation. That's a big title.
It's a big title. Like, I get the greatest distinction. Most people tell me, like, that's a really coolest job. I have no idea what that means. So, and by the way, even folks in GE say that. But look, I'm part of GE's actual marketing department. Most people think I come out of the tech area, or maybe I come out of our R&D area. I work with all those people all the time. Right. But I also work 50% of my time with outside folks. So I'm connected with startups, I'm connected with makers, I'm connected with people from academics, and I literally try and be a matchmaker to do things. We're going to talk a little bit about our friends from Local Motors and what we're doing with them. You might have heard or seen about our relationship with Quirky that we have, and an innovation, inventor community. So my role is to try and not just find startups and how we can become more innovative. It's very much focused around what does it mean, we use the word culture, what does it mean for a big company to try and like a startup?
Yeah,
when we say big, we have 306,000 employees. Okay, we're in 140 countries. Wow. We have 24 countries where we have over $1 billion in sales. I mean, we're about as big as it gets.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. It's really easy to be heavy. Yeah. And I don't know. I forget the rest of it. It's one of my favorites.
I'll leave that to you.
Go ahead.
So I'm not sure where to go after that one. So we have what we employ with my team is we go to all the different GE divisions and we talk about what are some of the problems they're trying to deal with. And you got the folks in the medical business trying to come up with literally solutions that save people's lives. You got folks in the aviation division trying to figure out how to make jet engines more powerful and more fuel efficient. You got people in the power division, and then of course you got people in the appliances division that we would all know as consumers. So as they're trying to figure out what they're trying to do, we're trying to help them do it faster. We're trying to help it do more like a startup would do, and quite frankly, we're trying to make connections with communities that you represent. And we've just kind of evolved our way into, well, you gotta just jump in.
Be a part of it, yeah.
You gotta be a part of it. And trust me, we're not perfect. We stub our toe, but we're trying and we'll keep trying. And that's exactly why we're doing an event like tonight.
Oh, that's great. And so, why DC? I mean, you've got a lot of different places that you've done it, and there's a lot of real estate out there.
There is a lot of real estate, so you think about where to do it. By the way, the next one of these is going to be international. In fact, I'll tell you, it's going to be. I won't tell you exactly where, but it's going to be in Africa. So we're looking for different places to do our footprint. And I don't say there's any secret sauce. Last year we did one of these in Chicago, and the reason why we did it in Chicago is we held a huge event called Minds and Machines. Anyone here heard the term industrial internet? Hopefully you have. Internet of Things.
Yeah.
So that's us. So if you heard of the Internet of Things, we've coined our version of it, which is industrial internet, which is trying to make the big equipment we make connected to the internet. So having oil fields be able to send data and information back, having jet engines that actually
everything's connected,
can be tracked and connected, and things like that. So we did a big meeting in Chicago. We said, let's do a garages in Chicago because we had something going on here.
Makes sense.
DC is a logical place for a company like us. Obviously, we have a lot of connections. We do a lot of business in the U.S. A lot of politicians pay attention to what GE does. So it just seemed like a good place to do it.
Switching topics a little bit, talking about you work with different groups, and so I'm curious, how many people are in startup mode here?
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to know that too.
Okay. Yes, there's a few here, quite a few. So how would they engage with a big company like GE? And what last thing you probably get a lot of pitches, but like that's not the best way to engage. Maybe there's some other tidbit or tip you could give.
I'll give a couple, hopefully, real world examples for folks here. Again, with the caveat of we're not perfect, but I guarantee you we keep trying.
Yeah.
So we will do events like this, and we're going to do a few of these a year to get that together. The other thing we do is we have a whole ventures team. So a colleague of mine runs an organization called GE Ventures.
Right.
And so we're looking to actually make equity investments, possibly JV with people, and see what we can do. When either myself or a colleague meets a great startup, we've opened up a lot of internal channels now. We can connect you to our global research organization. We can connect you. So we're kind of like, air traffic control, if you would, the team that I've got and the teams that we associate with.
Yep.
And we've really evolved to the point where people say, I want to figure out a new way to go do something. And I'll put in a plug for two great entrepreneurs we've worked with, Eric Reese from the Lean Startup and David Kidder, Startup Playbook, who now runs a startup called Bionic, where we've actually been working with them on asking them as coaches, if you would, to come in and train GE teams. Hey, you're a successful startup.
Yep.
How can I be a successful startup even if I run a $5 or $10 billion division?
No, it's hard. Yeah.
So it's hard.
The end of that quote was, "It's hard to be light."
It is It's hard to be light.
Easy to be heavy, hard to be light. But it's true. I mean, it really is true. Like it's hard. It's a lot harder.
It's very hard
to be fast and in a big organization.
Think about this, especially for all those of you who are looking to do startups.
Yeah.
What's the goal of, I think, just about every startup? You want to be big, right? You want to be successful.
Right.
You want to scale. You want people to either enjoy your product, buy your product, get your product sold, or get sold yourself. What does every big company do once they get big? They want to be more like a startup. They want to act smaller. They want to grow fast, like you want to grow fast. So what seems like an oxymoron on the surface actually has a lot of stitching in between if you spend your time getting into it, and that's a huge thing. I mean, trust me, every one of you are thinking to be like a startup. You have tremendous things you can offer to large firms. Your energy, your passion, your expertise. And oh, by the way, we've got stuff we think we can offer too. Not just smart people, but scale and resources and stuff like that. I think the trick for all of us is how the heck can we figure out how to get together. So that's why I experiment with a lot of stuff and try out, not just meeting people, but we actually go try and do
some project together. Yeah, it makes sense. Okay. So let's talk about open innovation. It's a topic you guys talk about a lot. How do you look at that concept of open innovation? What's your thoughts?
Well, I first, by the way, I came out of the packaged goods industry quite a few years ago. In fact, I don't know if there's any people from the consumer goods industry here, but I get to tell everyone at GE I'm a recovering consumer marketer because I now work with all the big stuff that we do. So I'd say, look, open innovation, like a lot of things, actually came up in the consumer space. So you get people like, Pepsi trying to get the next flavor of Mountain Dew, or folks like that saying, hey, I'm going to go do open innovation crowdsourcing to come up with a better new idea for product or idea for marketing. So take that concept and just kind of do it industrial strength.
Right.
And so what I mean by industrial strength is, I'll give you two, well, I'll give you several, but give you a couple examples we've done in the last year. Is one is we took a jet engine bracket. Now I'm sure you've all seen jet engines. We're probably not going to go out to the crowd, at least initially, to design jet engines, but we did 2 open innovation challenges last year. One where we took a physical jet engine bracket that weighs like about 100 pounds. A jet engine, fun fact for you, might weigh 10,000 pounds. 2,000 pounds of each jet engine is literally the steel that holds it up to the wing of the plane. Now it's really, really important, but it's referred to as dumb metal. You have to forge it and
I think it's
cast
smart
it,
metal. I think it's the
stuff
best
like
thing
that.
to do.
It's really important metal. It's dumb in
Yeah.
the sense that it doesn't do anything, and you're making it the same way you fundamentally have made steel for casting steel for 100 years. So we threw a challenge out there and said, could you redesign it if, and this is a big if you could 3D print this jet engine bracket and print it in steel, by the way, print it in like tungsten and titanium and stuff like that, which is what it's made out of, could you come up with a new design that had the same strength, if not better, but reduce the weight by a third? And the conclusion of that is, we went through a startup. I like to tell people we eat our own cooking. There's a global network of engineers called GrabCAD. We contracted with GrabCAD, and we said we'd like to put this challenge out to the global engineering community. We got 697 engineering diagrams back from people who signed up for the challenge. The winning bracket actually reduced the weight 84%.
Wow.
So I'm a PhD engineering student outside of Jakarta, Indonesia. Wow. We never would have met him in a million years if we tried to find him ourselves. The aviation engineers were wowed beyond belief. How much experience do you think this gentleman had in the airline industry? Zero.
Had he been on a plane, though?
To which our CEO, the second place winner, who's from Poland, had not been on a plane because we tried to fly him in to give him his award. And he said, I don't have a passport, I've never been on a plane. But he was the second place winner. So think about that. And I remember presenting to our CEO, Jeff Immelt, like we had this really crazy idea. In fact, most people thought we were literally crazy for trying it. And I guess that's what I do. I get to take all the crazy ideas and say, you know what, that's just so crazy, it might just work.
That sounds like a great job.
And he said, tell me that again, how much experience did he have in aviation? Zero. And oh, by the way, the aviation community within GE was thrilled. So there's an inside-outside thing. So they knew the problem. They didn't have the time or the resources to get to it. They finally said, what the heck, we got to lose. We did another one where there are some very, very high-tech pieces of every single piece of equipment you can get. We have redesigned internal components of, if I say an MRI machine, okay, you probably yourself or a loved one at some point has had an MRI at a hospital. Really, really complex electronics and magnets in there. We've redesigned some of those.
Oh, wow.
We took a jet engine fuel nozzle, you can go look all the stuff up online, that is 16 parts today, has to get assembled and welded together. By the way, every time you do a weld, you don't make something stronger, you make it weaker. And it adds more weight, it adds more complexity. But there's literally no way to construct things with these intricate old folds and curves and things like that. We sent that out to the crowd. We now have reduced 16 parts to one 3D printed part of this stuff. So we just keep trying this stuff.
That didn't happen here though, right? Not in this space.
Not in this space. A little higher tech printer than the ones downstairs.
That's pretty amazing. So I don't think I even need to ask you. Like that's super valuable, right, to you guys, and you would not be able to do that kind of stuff internally, right?
Well, yes and no. Look, I think all of us would realize this is true whether you're a small firm or a large firm. You tend to work with a lot of smart people, but the majority of smart people don't work with you. So we use the term global brain for crowdsourcing. There's got to be a way to access the global brain in today's world. Through the power of the internet. How do you access that global brain and use them? In our case, not to make the consumer stuff like the next flavor of Coke or Pepsi or Mountain Dew. But in our case, how could you make that industrial strength and actually save lives in healthcare or save fuel and pollution and industry and things like that?
Do you think there's enough organizations or companies using this kind of open innovations?
No, actually, that's a good question, but my answer is absolutely no. I think too many people think of it superficially. in that, like, it's
almost
really
like the branding, marketing kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I told you folks, I come out of the consumer packaged goods industry. I have no disrespect for those folks. I mean, they do wonderful things and make great products for all of us. But I think there's a much better use for society if you can get people to think about like some of the really hard tasks that are out there that could be solved if you could collect the crowd's effort.
What do you think stop? Is it fear? Is it like what do you think stopping people or companies?
That's another really good question. I've thought about this a lot for reasons. It's what I do.
Yeah.
I think the problem is if you're dealing with a consumer anything, we are all consumers. Okay, I can react to a flavor. I can react to anything in social media. I can react to anything I can see on my phone or anything I can personally eat because I'm a consumer. And oh, by the way, I happen to know lots of consumers. Yeah. So let me bring you into our world and go talk to. So I was meeting with people from GE's oil and gas division yesterday. So just to show you how crazy big we are, we have a $20 billion oil and gas division. I'll bet you if I queried the 100 of you here, that probably 95 of you didn't know we were even in the oil and gas business. But we're the largest maker basically of the pumps in the system that move oil around the world. So someone drills a hole in the ground or in the well, the pumps that are there to actually get it out and monitor and stuff is what we make. So my point of bringing that, say why people don't get it, the technology to do stuff like that. Okay, deep sea drilling is like so complex. We may have just heard about it, and so it's years and years and years of expertise to go do that. But as we just kind of open the door with these jet engine nozzles and these jet engine brackets, if you can, I call it disaggregate. If you can disaggregate the problem and say, this is the structural issue or the data science issue. We do a lot with data scientists in this area as well. I think it's hard to connect those two worlds. It's getting easier. Because the engineers say, well, you're not going to go get me anyone who knows anything about deep sea drilling in the crowd. That may or may not be true. But the problem is not necessarily about deep sea drilling. It might be about how do you drill in really extreme heat and temperature. And I bet there's a lot of engineers who know how to do that.
Out.
So I think it's being smart to figure out how to crowdsource the right solution and
almost
then
like compartmentalizing it, like this specific thing, being a little more specific, so it's not the bigger issue. That makes sense.
And it's look, it's an emerging skill, and I think as more startups think about themselves as, I don't necessarily just have to do the consumer, the things that we see. Again, nothing wrong with that, but be able to say, like, I can actually go in and solve some really tough problems. I think we'll get more of these.
Great. All right. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Cheers.